when it's presented as you are killing, you are murdering an unborn child, I think we do have to be very, very careful.
I'm proud of you, you know that. I hope you do.
But with sorrow and a bit of shame, the best thing to do is as soon as possible to terminate this pregnancy.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
There may be certain exceptions, of which severe deformity might be one, of which certainly incest and would be others. And in those cases, I would say the sooner the better.
But what about the baby?
It's very difficult. It's very hard for a man to talk about this.
Bro, I'm out, man.
N.T. Wright gives his thoughts on abortion. And let's just say, as one of the most prominent biblical theologians of our time, it leaves much to be desired. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but I want to welcome you to the show. My name is Reed Uberman. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Today, our show is sponsored by our friends over at UTAP2.com. Now, I don't know if you've seen these pictures circulating online. Last June, in Target stores all over America, you saw pride displays busting out at the seams, and it's enough to make small children want to avert their eyes and run as quickly as possible to the nearest Walmart. But all that to say that it's kind of changed. Something has shifted in the atmosphere. Might it be boycotts? Might it be conservative and Christian outcry? But this year, you can see Target stores all over America have moved out their pride displays and made room for these very patriotic displays. I'm only assuming in preparation for July 4th. Well, what accounts for this drastic change? Whereas Target in the past was displaying packing underwear for boys and chest binders for girls, now they are celebrating America, weirdly. What a difference an election makes is what I can say, but also what a difference it makes when people who know the truth stand up and do something about it. They can make cultural impact that truly will change the world. And this is most important when it comes to Christianity, because Christians have an obligation to create a better world for all of us. But apparently that memo was missed by N.T. Wright, who is one of our most prominent and most popular theologians in the world today. But don't let the British accent fool you, because his takes on abortion are anything but Christian. He was just recently on the Premier Unbelievable podcast, which is a great show, and he gave his thoughts on abortion. Check it out.
When it's presented as you are killing, you are murdering an unborn child, I think we do have to be very, very careful. And I've had personal experience of this with a close family member where soon after the couple discovered that they were pregnant, or the wife was pregnant, then it also became apparent that the wife had been accidentally exposed to German measles, rubella. Now, as we know, that exposure to German measles can result in serious deformities in the womb, etc., etc. And the GP in that case, who was a devout Christian GP, said, we're going to do the tests, and if she has been exposed to rubella, if there's a threat of serious defamation or whatever, then we will recommend termination. And I remember my heart in my mouth when I heard that and thinking, do I really agree with that? But at the time, it was absolutely clear for the mental health, never mind anything else, of the mother and the potential father as well, that this was the way to go. In fact, all was well. The rubella had not actually done what it sometimes might do, and that child was born perfectly healthy and has grown up now.
Well, all I can say is praise God that that child was born healthy, because that practitioner, who is supposedly a very strong Christian, and N.T. Wright, who is one of the most prominent Bible theologians of our time, were ready to hand that child a death warrant simply because it would be born handicapped. Now, I want to work backwards and go to the front here with N.T. Wright's arguments, because I want to give the Lord his due here. So CRS, or congenital rubella syndrome, is no joke. If you're born with CRS, it can impact the child severely. It can be as minor as some glaucoma or vision impairments, but it can go to the brain, and it can even impact the internal organs. And let's just say it's not fatal, but it can truly be severe, and it can handicap the child for its whole life. So that's something to understand, to be sure. However, it shouldn't take much, especially as a Christian, to suggest that just because a child is handicapped, that you wouldn't want to end its life. Now, no person with a conscience would look at an 18-month-old handicapped child and say, we should get rid of that child. It's just way too much of a burden on the parents. Now, if you wouldn't say that about the 18-month-old, I fail to understand, especially from a Christian perspective, why you would say that the child in the womb, because it might be handicapped, should be terminated just because it's in the womb. This is a very immature way of looking at things, or worse, a very Margaret Sanger way of looking at things. Because a child isn't seen doesn't necessarily mean it's invisible, right? That's like the hide and go seek mentality of a child. Oh, we can't see it, therefore it must not exist. A child in the womb is no less a child outside of the womb just simply because you can see it. And a child that is handicapped in the womb and outside of the womb, both of them are going to need long-term care in order for its survivability. So just because you have the opportunity to off that child before it comes out of the womb and before it starts to really grow and develop doesn't mean that you get to terminate its life. And in other words, if you're a Christian, especially, you have no right making the argument that a child in the womb is purely a fetus or a parasite. Which brings us to how N.T. Wright started this. When you present abortion as taking the innocent life of a baby, then ... Well, it's not that we're presenting it, N.T. It's that is what you're doing when you're performing an abortion. You are taking the life of a child. And in this case, you argue that we're taking this child's life, not even because it's handicapped and the child's life may be difficult, or even that the mother's life is going to be burdened with cares of this world, but that for the mental health of the mother.
It was absolutely clear for the mental health, never mind anything else, of the mother and the potential father as well.
Just so that she can live a little bit more freely, knowing that she doesn't have to take care of a handicapped child. That, in a word, is selfish and clearly non-Christian. Imagine saying that to the post-abortive mother who is suffering now in her conscience with the death of her child. I'm not sure that that's great for your mental health either. So this goes to the idea that abortion is just a victimless crime. Of course, if taking the life of an innocent baby is what an abortion is, and of course it is, because the only thing that is produced in the womb of a mother is neither a parasite nor just purely a fetus, because we don't have fetus showers, we have baby showers. If that is a baby, then you are taking an innocent life, and with that comes a bunch of moral issues that a Christian should be willing to speak out against. We'll get back to the show in just a moment, but before I do that, I want to let you know that today's show is sponsored by our friends over at UTAP2.com. If you're interested in getting rid of all of your paper business cards because they're passé, and if you're interested in networking like it's the 21st century, then let me introduce you to UTAP2. This is my UTAP2 card, and just with one tap of this card on the front of any mobile device, I can whisk people away to a specialized URL that will take them to every single point of contact that I could hope to send their way. You can even use things like this UTAP2 tag, which will do the very same thing. So there's convenient ways to network with people like never before. But in order to see all the ways that you can do that, you need to go to UTAP2.com, where you can scan through all of the different options and printed material that they can make for you and your business so that you can network like never before. And don't forget, before you check out, use the promo code AndyThinker10 for a discount on your order. As we'll continue to hear more from N.T. Wright, we'll realize that this goes beyond just the mental health of the mother and goes into the very secular and misinformed arguments about the R word, incest, and life of the mother.
It is about the mother's health versus the health of the child, or whatever, and particularly that, as you cited, in cases of incest, there may be a very, very strong argument for saying this ought never to have happened, and with sorrow, because we do not want to do this in principle, but with sorrow and a bit of shame, the best thing to do is as soon as possible to terminate this pregnancy. It is not something which we should collude with. At the same time, there may be certain exceptions, of which severe deformity might be one, of which certainly incest and would be others. And in those cases, I would say the sooner the better, because at a certain point, and I am not medically qualified to say at what point I would draw a line, then this is a viable human being that should then be cherished.
So quick question, N.T. Why exactly do we want to do this very quickly? Why do we want to do this with a sense of sorrow and shame? Might it be that because we understand intuitively, especially as Christians, that that baby in the womb is a baby? So if you do it with any sense of sorrow and shame, perhaps you shouldn't do it at all. What I find fascinating about this is that N.T. Wright says that he's no medical expert, but he is an expert theologian. He is a scholar of the Bible. And we hear no kind of theological argument for the ideas of quickening, which is what they used to call ensoulment back in the day, when a child actually becomes, a living soul, when it's a baby. This would be the ancient theological version of the viability argument. We hear no discussion about this whatsoever, but of course we know that people like Augustine and Aquinas, when they talk about ensoulment or quickening, they didn't have the kind of biological and scientific resources that we do today. So we know beyond a shadow of a doubt from the moment of conception that a new strand of DNA is formed, that it's not either the mother or the father's DNA, but it's a combination of both of those things. And then what is that fertilized egg? What is that zygote exactly, except a stage of human development, because it can't be anything other than a human. Of when you get rid of that human life, it's still a human life. So there really is no in between here. You're either taking a human life and it's wrong, or you're not, and you can do it whenever you want. You don't have to even worry about doing it quickly. Take your time, because after all, it's just a fertilized egg, unless it's a human being. And of course, we have plenty of scriptures to tell us that that child is being knit together in the mother's womb by God himself, that I knew you before you were even conceived, the Bible will tell us. So as far as these exception arguments go for our word incest and the life of the mother, let me just take life of mother off the table for just a moment and say that the vast majority of abortions, about 99% of them, aren't done because of life of the mother, and there is never a medically necessary reason to terminate the life of a baby to save the life of a mother. Now, you might have to deliver the baby prematurely, and it may take the life of the baby in order to do that, but it doesn't mean that you have to intentionally take the life of the child in order to save the mother. Now, there's also this idea of ectopic pregnancies. Now, a child that is born outside of the fallopian tubes is never going to survive. That's not a viable pregnancy whatsoever. So, to save the life of the mother and to take care of an ectopic pregnancy is not necessarily an abortion. So we're not even talking about life of the mother in the first place, since the vast majority of abortions that take place in America are simply done because of convenience. Now, people argue with my phrasing of this all the time. But if you are saying that you're not done with your college career, or you have a future, or that the guy that you're with isn't somebody that you want to raise a child with, all of these are serious concerns, but they are a matter of convenience rather than a matter of our incest or the life of the mother. And then as far as incest and the R word are concerned, I would like to show you now a sonogram on the screen, and I would like for you to tell me which baby was conceived in R. Which baby is really a byproduct of that horrible situation? Not to mention, do we now charge an innocent human baby with the crime of R rather than the criminal? So it's clear that this child has a future as long as we don't snuff it out. So this idea that we need to do as quickly as possible and with shame and sorrow is kind of the old Yeller style of viewing innocent human life. We're just going to turn our head and we're going to take care of it quickly so that we don't have to actually grapple with the moral issue of abortion. And unfortunately, this is the response for many Christian leaders in our age. I pray for the day that Christians will understand that they have a responsibility to the culture to shape it and to change it. Now, Christians, by and large, they take one of two approaches. They either say we're supposed to love the culture or reform the culture. And I would say the vast majority of Christians take that first position. They say we're just supposed to love the culture. We don't have to do anything other than just tell the world how much Jesus loves them. Now, I think that many people do that for a myriad of different reasons. Ignorance could be one of them, but I don't want to impute motive here. I'll just say this, that I think it's perfectly acceptable to do both of these things and that they are not mutually exclusive. You can reform the culture because you love it. So this is what John Wesley said. He said, "The world is my parish." He didn't have an understanding of the fact that he just went to church and that was his Christian duty, but he knew that he had an obligation to make a difference in the world all around him because he said that he was a Christian, because he made claim to be the light of the world. It's only unfortunate that the most important leaders of our age are so very silent on the issues that matter most. But I thank God that this may be changing and that Christians may be getting a heart for the culture because they recognize that they can truly make a difference when they speak up. And we should speak up because lives depend on it. All right, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you love this episode, you will love becoming a member over at indiethinker.org/support, where you can gain exclusive perks like ebooks, audiobooks, movies, documentaries, and so much more. Don't forget to check out the sponsors of our show today, and go with God.